What up, Sci fam? It's your boy Nickel. Today, we're going to look at some of the aspects of the teenage brain. So, in this one, we're going to make like a little web chart, flow chart type of thing. So, as we do this, you can kind of see what it's going to look like in the end. We'll start in the middle of the page and we'll explore beyond the middle off into the edges. So it's going to kind of be like a spider web of sorts. But we're going to talk about some things that are unique to the brain in the teenage years. And so I'm calling that the teenage brain. So as you can see, there'll be lots and lots of text that will expand beyond this middle section. But in the middle, we need to identify the fact that our topic of discussion today, on this page at least, is the teen brain. All right, in your teenage years, your brain is unique. It is growing, it is kind of mature, but it still has some ways to go. So in this process, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the top. And in your teenage years, you actually have a peak sensitivity to a neurotransmitter that's called dopamine. So you have a peak sensitivity to dopamine, which means dopamine affects you more in your teenage years than it does at any other time. And dopamine is what controls and allows you to feel rewards. It affects your learning and also your decisions or your decision making. So this is all peak at teenage years. Something that's awesome about this is that it means that you're really quick to learn. You can pick up on things really quickly. Another thing is that you are more willing to take big risks, but pretty much only if there's going to be a big reward. Now, this was actually a result from a study that was just recently conducted in 2011. So a lot of this information about the teenage brain and how it's unique in your teenage years compared to when you get older, and that it continues to mature even into your 20s. This is newer research. I mean, this fact wasn't even established until 2011, that teens are more willing to take big risks in order to get big rewards if those are available. So something else that's happening as it relates to dopamine, this peak sensitivity to dopamine, it does allow you to take those risks and make decisions to get those big rewards and make you quick to learn. But something else that ends up happening is you have an increase of another neurotransmitter that's called oxytocin. And oxytocin works with dopamine in your teenage years to link your social interactions with rewards. So as you interact with more and more people, you end up feeling more and more rewarded most of the time. Okay, so you can see then how you have this peak sensitivity to dopamine, which branches off and creates all these other things. And these are just a couple of the ideas of what this sensitivity to dopamine is doing. All right, the teen brain. Also, we're going to go over here to the right side now. And what they've learned is that exclusion, when you're not included, exclusion can trigger distress. Now, this was actually found in a research study from 2009. So again, this is pretty new information. And exclusion can relate to if you're left out of a friend group, but sometimes it's just that feeling of FOMO that you get when you get on social media and you feel like you're not included in something. And that can trigger a feeling of distress. Now, what actually happens in the brain is it activates a part of your brain that's called the anterior cingulate, which is a brain region which controls your mood, your level of anxiety, and your self-esteem. So in your teenage years, being excluded or if that feeling of FOMO hits you harder and it affects your self-esteem. It doesn't make you feel as worthy when you get left out of things. It also impacts your mood. If you're not included, it probably decreases your mood and it increases the amount of anxiety that you're feeling from not being included. And that's just part of being a teenager. All right, the third aspect here, we're going to go to our last little branch of our spider web. And we're going to look at another neurotransmitter. And this one, we're going to look at the fluctuations that happen in your serotonin levels. So serotonin fluctuates, and serotonin is what impacts mood, your appetite, and your sleep. So as this serotonin goes up and down, your mood changes a lot, your appetite changes a lot, and your sleep patterns change a lot as a teenager. You've probably experienced this. Now, something that's interesting is that estrogen actually causes there to be more fluctuations in serotonin. So these serotonin fluctuations where people's mood and appetite and sleep change, it's especially occurring, or it's more common in females due to increases in estrogen. Okay, well, let's go down here and see what that means. If we increase serotonin, so those days when you have more serotonin in your system, then you have increased feelings of well-being, you feel pretty good, and you also have increased happiness because you have more of this serotonin. But in those days, we're going to go down here to this other box, in those days when there's less serotonin going through your system, you feel an increase in loneliness. You feel an increase in depression. And that usually ends up leading to more cases of self-harm. And so these are all just normal things, not harming yourself, but feeling lonely and feeling depressed. And so it's not necessary to do something where you're going to harm yourself, because these fluctuations happen as a teenager. You get more serotonin. Sometimes you don't have as much serotonin. It goes up and down. Your mood changes, your appetite changes, your sleep changes. There's a lot of aspects of the teenage brain that are still trying to figure themselves out, and hopefully this just leads you on a little bit of an investigation as to how the teen brain is maturing. All right, I will see you in the next video. See ya.